Welcome to Get Real, How to Live a More Authentic Life, with psychologist and author of over 75 books, Dr. Barry Weinhold. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to How to Live a More Authentic Life with Dr. Barry Weinhold. Get Real, How to Live a More Authentic Life with Dr. Barry Weinhold, author of 80 books on psychology. Dr. Weinhold, how are you today?
I'm doing really well. I'm enjoying the summer, and I'm looking forward to a trip to Taos next month, and life is good.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear that. What do you got for us today?
Well, again, I'm going to go back to the book. Show the cover up there again, and basically, I'm going to be taking one of the items on from the self quiz that's in this book, and digging in a little deeper about what it means and how it really can hold you back. I want to talk about probably one of the most important indicators of psychological intelligence is your ability to be in touch with your needs, your wants and needs, and to be able to ask for help from others when you need it. We're social beings, and we like to work together, and we need to work together to make our lives effective. I know there are some people who think they're self-made. There ain't no such thing, I'm afraid to say. Most of us have gotten where we got with the help of others, and it helps us to be able to ask directly for what we want and need from others in order to improve our lives. And so a lot of people have trouble with this, and I want to talk about why and what you can do about it. So that's kind of the theme for today and in the podcast. So I want to, if you put up the self quiz again of how to increase your psychological intelligence, I can look at that for a minute. And I want to take the first one here. No, actually, it's not the first one. It's the third one. Ask directly for what you want and need from others. Now, basically, the reason people have trouble doing this is that I'm a developmental psychologist, so I look at everything developmentally. And what I can trace back is the fact that most of us, when we went through infancy, our biggest challenge was to be able to bond and attach to a mother or to another person. And we have to have that in order to survive. And so that's the first of two important needs that we have when we were born. The second one is the need to be an authentic person. So I think those are the two things that I work on most with people. And so when I look at infancy and I look at the research on what happens to bonding and what can interfere with it, that a lot of things interfere with it. It apparently is in our modern world, particularly in this country, only about 41% of infants leave infancy with a secure bonding and attachment. That's what you're hoping for, is a secure one. So 59% have kind of an insecure one, and they're still trying to figure out what that is. Ben, do you know what your attachment style is?
I don't, and I'm a little afraid to find out. I think it's I think it's avoidant anxious. Anxious avoidant.
Anxious ambivalent is the one. There's three.
Right.
There's avoidant, there's anxious ambivalent, and there's disorganized. and those are the three insecure ones. And the percentage of people in each seems to vary depending on who did the research. But some of the research I read were showed that about 80% of those who come for therapy uh, have a disorganized attachment uh, relationship style. That's what's gotten them in trouble and why they're in therapy. That the disorganized attachment seems to really mess up relationships a lot. Actually, the other two do as well, but I'm going to focus on that one because of the research I read said that 80% of the clients who go to therapy have that. And so I want to help people understand how it operates in their life and how it operates in their relationships and how it can really destroy your relationships. And then also the research shows that about 80% of people who work in the helping professions, this is really kind of startling, also have a disorganized attachment. So many therapists, if you haven't worked on your own, if you don't know what your style is and you haven't worked on it, you can be ending up being the blind leading the blind. If you don't know what your style is and you don't know what your client's style is, uh, you may go way off base on what is really going on. Because I think that this whole area of asking for what you want and need directly is goes way back to infancy, and then it is also reinforced at about age 2 when you're separating and trying to build that authentic self. If that doesn't work too well, you sometimes adopt an attitude of "Oh, I'll show you I can do it myself." And these are the kind of people who use the more of the disorganized, or instead of the disorganized, they have the one attachment style, either anxious, ambivalent, or avoidant, and they become more avoidant or anxious and ambivalent when they enter relationships. The uh, the disorganized people don't seem to have a lot of anxious and ambivalent feelings when they enter relationships, but they have others that get in trouble and cause the relationships to not work as well. So I'd like to dig in deeper into that one and give you some ideas about what to look for. And then I also will put a post for you to download if you want it. Is I have a self inventory that determines whether you have a disorganized attachment style, relationship style or not. So I'll leave that up there after when I'm done talking at the end of this episode. But you can download it and fill it out and score it and see if disorganized attachment style and relationship attachment style is part of why you have some relationship issues that you have. So Ben, put that chart up there, or list of no, that's not it. There it is. Examples of how the disorganized attachment relationship style in your adult relationships. So I wanted to go through each one of these and talk about how they could really influence and affect and actually alter or even uh, break up a relationship. The first one is that people with a disorganized attachment relationship style tend to focus on the needs of others or their partner at the expense of their own wants and needs. They tend to look at what can I do to help my partner do better. Now that grows out of how that developed in infancy. The research shows that if a parent shows some weakness or some inability to meet the child's needs, the child will leap into the breach and do something to help the parent do a better job of meeting uh, their own needs and also their child's needs. And so the child begins to focus on the needs of the partner in order to, it maybe also is a way of kind of protecting themselves, because sometimes if the partner, or in the case of an infant, the mother is either depressed or overworked or overwhelmed or has an addiction, they pick it up very quickly and they try to do something to make the situation better. That's where it starts. And then they begin to continue to do that as a relationship style into their early years as they become um, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They still continue to do that, and it becomes a way of doing relationship, and that can really lead to resentment after a while. If you focus so much on the needs of the other and you don't get your needs met, it can lead to some kind of resentment after a while. That, gee, I'm giving so much to this relationship and I'm not getting a lot back. And that I hear that tale very often in relationships. So the second one is related to this. You accommodate to the needs of the others at your own expense. And the classic uh, relationship style of a disorganized attachment nature is one of accommodating to the needs of others, and that is can also lead to some resentment that somehow, in accommodating to their needs, you don't get back what you think you deserve in return, and you start to feel resentful. So there is also some approach avoidance in the disorganized attachment, as well as it shows up in the anxious ambivalent type. But the approach avoidance here is that you want to be close to other people, but when you start to get close, you get kind of afraid of them, and afraid that somehow you're more vulnerable, you're more likely to get hurt, and so you begin to start to put up some barriers to intimacy. You put up some ways to protect yourself in relationships, in close relationships, that may end up not really helping the relationship grow very much. So then the fourth one is that the person with a disorganized attachment relationship style tends to normalize things that are not normal in their relationships. And that can get them in trouble. The red flags that show up in relationships, you know, they kind of dismiss them. Oh, he was just having a bad day. Or typically enablers in relationships where there's an alcoholic tend to do this a lot. They normalize the alcoholic's behavior and don't really see the impact of it. So it's really an important way to understand that by normalizing things that are not normal, you are really helping kind of create an illusion of the relationship being working when it's not really working very well. Uh, Not feeling that you deserve to get your needs met is another thing that the disorganized attachment style seems to lead to. People tend to then think about themselves as, well, you know, I'm not really that important to have these needs met. The other person's more important, and actually, some of this grows out of some religious trainings. There's a lot of people who grew up with very religious families where taking care of your own needs and making sure that you deserve to get your needs met is like being selfish. And so it's not seen as something really essential. In fact, it's got uh, bad press in some religious communities. And in fact, I know one community where their sole goal is to eliminate the self and to replace the self with groupthink. And that's what I define as a cult. So the next one is the willingness to tolerate neglect in your relationship, because strangely enough, neglect has more of long-lasting impact on our behavior than does abuse. And so if we were neglected in any way as a child, and we made some decisions about that and had some beliefs about that, maybe it's one that, well, I wasn't neglected because I didn't deserve to get that anyway. So there's really a, a lack of understanding of how neglect and growing up is affecting your current adult relationships. your own feeling of being neglected. And remember, anything that you didn't get finished growing up, any learning experience that was left unfinished, will continue to show up in your life. And when I work with couples, uh, usually it has shown up already, and they've had a number of times where they've had conflict over this issue or that issue. And I usually found that two things are true. First of all, whatever they're upset about is not the real reason they're upset. It's really a bleed through from some kind of uh, earlier belief related to possibly an insecure attachment. So they will tend to in their relationships will tend to act out and or regress. So that's number seven, is that people with a disorganized attachment uh, often are heavy into drama and in their relationships, and they basically their beginning relationships were not calm and peaceful. There was some drama at the very beginning, maybe as early as infancy. It may be a drama about getting sick, or mother getting sick, or mother having an accident, or mother not being able to take care of you because of addiction or whatever it might be. But there's drama attached, and also people, when they are triggered, they regress. So in relationships, what I found was that the closer the relationship becomes, the more likely that these dramas and these regressions will show up. And it's kind of like the good news, bad news. Uh, and the reason is that it's usually not feeling, people don't feel safe enough to allow these feelings to show up. And so they have guarded against making these happen, and making these show up, having these show up in their relationships. So they really are uh, lacking in understanding of why they do what they do in this case. Number eight, most people with a disorganized attachment style uh, have poor conflict resolution uh, uh, skills. They just don't have the ways. That's the second thing I found in working with many couples is, first, they don't understand what they're really upset about, and second of all, they don't have any skills to resolve it if they did know. So those are the two things I work with most of my clients. And the book has a lot. It's a whole chapter on conflict resolution skills, and gives the information and also the tools they need. People need to have better conflict resolution skills. One of my specialty areas. And people with a disorganized attachment tend to avoid conflict at all costs. They tend to again have that shaky kind of bonding and attachment, and so they don't want to have any conflict that could threaten that. And so any conflicts that come up, they tend to try to avoid them actually happening in the first place, and they go way out of their way to prevent the conflict from happening. And then number 10 on the list is that uh, people, instead of asking directly for what they want because of this disorganized attachment, they use indirect means to get their needs met. They may try to manipulate others, number 11, into feeling sorry for them, so that they're like a victim, and that they need someone to reach out and take care of them in some way. And that is a very common way that people handle this lack of directness in terms of their needs and wants. They manipulate others by not asking, but hinting or making it uh, clear that they need some help, but they never ask for it. And number 12 is they engage in people pleasing behaviors, which are frequently when people have a disorganized attachment relationship style. I have another inventory on defining whether you're a people pleaser or not. Almost everybody that has the disorganized attachment style also score high on that one. They score high on the people pleaser inventory. And then finally, a lot of people have used this term of the imposter syndrome, that they feel like they're they're living a life of a lie, or they're not being truthful. And this is the false self that I talk about a lot. It's similar to the feeling of the imposter syndrome that people come up with. And so uh, these are kind of the more common ways that the disorganized attachment style will affect your adult relationships. And so the first step, of course, is understanding whether you have this insecure attachment style. And so Ben, you can put up the inventory on how to change your. That's I don't think that's the one I'm looking for here. I'm looking for one that says disorganized attachment. Oh yes, it does say that. Okay, this is the one. It has this stuff at the top, which shouldn't be there. But the inventory itself, you can download this whole thing and fill it out, score it, and see how much of your behavior in relationships might be related to a disorganized attachment, insecure attachment style. And then I'll talk more in my other, and certainly in the book, there's a lot about how to deal with that, how to change that if that's an issue for you. How do you get to re-regulate your relationship in a more equal way rather than using the strategies you developed as a child, having developed an insecure or disorganized attachment style. So, Ben, does that help you define what yours are?
Yeah, I have a disorganized attachment style. Pretty sure.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, you're in good company.
yeah, there you go. Good.
And it's the newest one that's been developed. I mean, understood. People from UC Berkeley, Mary Main and her husband, Eric Hasse, have done the pioneering research on disorganized attachment style. And it's only been maybe the last 10 years where the literature is starting to get filled with articles about how to understand it, how to identify it, and how to break free of it. So it's a newest form of our newest kind of level of understanding of how our infant attachment styles affect our adult life. And what I've come to understand is that whatever that first bonding and attachment was like, it becomes the template for all of our other relationships in the future, unless we change it. And so to understand where it came from, what it is about, is the first step in then learning that this is something I need to change. And so I work with my clients on changing if any of those elements of the disorganized attachment style show up in their relationships. We work on how do you change that, and some of it's gone. You have to take people back to infancy in terms of thinking about what might have happened as an infant that could have related to what they're dealing with now as an adult.
Yeah. What are we talking about next week?
Well, I'm going to dig deeper into the book and into another one of the 36 different elements of living a more authentic life, or having increase your ways of increasing your psychological intelligence. I'm going to talk about taming your shame.
Love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Weinhold. If you want any of the resources or to pick up the book or any of the other books that Dr. Weinhold has written, check out circle.org for all of that. You can get the link to that in the description of this episode. Thank you very much, Dr. Weinhold. Bye for now. For more information, please visit the Colorado Institute for Conflict Resolution and Creative Leadership at CICRCL.org or click the link in the show notes.